The rain fell like whispered secrets over Myeongdong. Cold. Relentless. Unforgiving. Daniela Michael stood beneath a flickering awning, clutching a small paper bag against her chest. Inside rested her final meal, a simple bowl of jjigae from the elderly woman who had taken pity on her dwindling one. The streets had emptied. Seoul's neon lights bled into wet pavement like watercolor tears. Then she heard it. A body hitting concrete. 40 feet ahead, a man collapsed against the alley wall. Blood seeped through his white shirt, spreading like a dark bloom across expensive fabric. His breathing came in shallow gasps. His eyes, cold, unreadable, stared at nothing. People walked faster. Someone whispered, "Don't touch him." Another hissed, "He's dangerous. Keep moving." But Daniela's feet moved toward him. Not away. Her grandmother's voice echoed through memory, "Kindness is never wasted, my child. Even when you have nothing, you have something to give." She knelt beside the bleeding stranger. And everything changed. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and what country you're representing in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts as this story unfolds. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next Afro-Korean romance. The steam had long escaped her jjigae. But Daniela didn't care about the cold seeping through the paper bag anymore. Her entire focus narrowed to the man bleeding against the concrete wall, his expensive suit torn at the shoulder, his white shirt painted crimson from a wound she couldn't see. His chest rose. Fell. Rose again. Still breathing. She set down her meal and crouched beside him, her knees pressing into cold puddles. Up close, she could see his features more clearly, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, lips pressed into a thin line even in unconsciousness. His hair, slicked back and now dampened by rain, fell across his forehead. And there, crawling up from beneath his collar, she noticed something. Black ink. A tattoo, intricate, deliberate, peeking from beneath torn fabric. The design disappeared beneath his shirt, but what she could see spoke of intention. Of meaning. She didn't understand its significance. Not yet. Her hands trembled as she reached for him. "Sir!" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. His eyes remained closed, his breathing labored but steady. Blood still seeped from somewhere beneath his jacket. Not arterial, she noted with relief. She'd seen enough injuries during her medical volunteer work in Lagos to recognize the difference. But he needed help. And everyone had walked away. Daniela glanced down the alley. A woman hurried past, umbrella tilted to avoid seeing. A businessman crossed to the other side of the street, his shoes clicking faster against wet pavement. A delivery driver slowed his scooter, took one look, and accelerated away. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Who was this man that even Seoul's streets feared him? She shook the thought away. It didn't matter. He was human. He was hurt. He was alone. And she had been alone enough times to know how that felt. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Okay, think." Her phone had died 3 hours ago. No charger, no money for a cafe to use their outlet. The nearest hospital was at least a 20-minute walk. And even if she screamed for help, the people of Myeongdong had already made their choice. They'd chosen to look away. She couldn't carry him. She couldn't call for help. But she could keep him alive until someone came. Her hands worked quickly, pulling off her thin cardigan despite the cold. She pressed it against what she hoped was the source of his bleeding, a gash along his side, hidden beneath his jacket. The fabric soaked through almost immediately, but she maintained pressure. "Stay with me," she murmured. "Don't you dare give up." His eyelids flickered. For a moment, just a moment, she saw his eyes. Dark. Intense. Unfocused but aware. They found her face. Something shifted in his expression. Confusion, perhaps. Or something deeper she couldn't name. Then his eyes closed again. Earlier that week, Daniela had arrived in Seoul with 3 suitcases and a heart full of hope. The consulting contract had seemed perfect, 6 weeks working with a luxury hotel chain on their Africa expansion strategy. Her expertise in cross-cultural branding had earned her the opportunity, and she'd accepted without hesitation. But the contract fell through within days. Budget restructuring, they'd called it. We'll be in touch, they'd promised. They never were. By the fourth day, reality set in. Her return flight wasn't refundable. Her hotel reservation ended tomorrow. And the emergency fund she'd set aside had dwindled to almost nothing after an unexpected currency conversion fee drained her account. She was stranded. In a city that didn't know her name. Speaking a language she barely understood. With no one to call. The irony burned. Back in Nigeria, she'd walked away from enough money to buy this entire street. She'd left behind a family name that opened doors across West Africa. She'd chosen anonymity over inheritance, independence over expectation. And now that choice had led her here. To a cold alley in Seoul. Pressing a stranger's wound with her last clean clothing. Her grandmother used to say, "God writes our stories in ink we cannot see. Trust the pen, even when the page looks empty." Daniela had stopped believing in stories years ago. But kneeling in that alley, watching blood seep through her cardigan, she wondered if perhaps the pen hadn't finished writing. Back in the alley. 20 minutes passed. The rain softened to mist. The neon lights continued their eternal flicker. And the stranger's breathing grew steadier, stronger, less labored. Daniela's arms ached from maintaining pressure. Her knees had gone numb against the concrete. But she didn't move. She couldn't. "Hold on," she whispered. "Someone will come. Someone has to come." As if answering her prayer, headlights cut through the alley's darkness. A black vehicle, sleek, expensive, silent, pulled to a stop 15 feet away. The doors opened before the engine died, and men in dark suits emerged with military precision. Their faces were stone. Their movements, choreographed. They approached with hands inside their jackets, and Daniela's heart seized. "Step away from him." The voice came from the tallest man, broad-shouldered, scarred along his left temple, eyes empty of emotion. His Korean was clipped, authoritative. Daniela understood the tone more than the words. "He's hurt," she said in English, her voice steadier than she felt. "He needs a hospital." The men exchanged glances. Something unspoken passed between them. The scarred man approached slowly. His eyes swept over the scene, the blood-soaked cardigan, her position, the stranger's steadied breathing. His expression revealed nothing, but Daniela caught the slight widening of his eyes when he noticed the wounded man's face. Recognition. And something else. Fear. "Get the car closer," he ordered in Korean. The other men moved instantly. The scarred man turned to Daniela, his gaze assessing her with new intensity. "You did this?" He gestured to the pressure she'd maintained. "He was bleeding," she said simply. No one else stopped. Silence stretched between them. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, "Why?" Daniela met his eyes. "Because he's human," she said. "And humans don't deserve to die alone in alleys." The scarred man stared at her for a long moment. Something flickered across his expression, surprise, perhaps, or respect. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a card, pressing it into her blood-stained hand. "If you need anything," he said, "call this number." Before she could respond, his men lifted the stranger with practiced efficiency, carrying him toward the waiting vehicle. Within seconds, doors closed, engines hummed, and the black car disappeared into Seoul's rain-slicked night. Daniela stood alone in the alley. Her cardigan was gone. Her knees ached. And in her hand, she held a black card with no name, only a phone number embossed in silver. She looked down at her paper bag, still sitting in a puddle where she'd left it. Her last meal. Cold now. Forgotten. She picked it up anyway and began the long walk to nowhere. 3 days later. Lee Seo-jun sat in the penthouse office of Hanyul Tower, Seoul's most exclusive address. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city's skyline, a kingdom of glass and light that answered, in some way, to him. The wound at his side throbbed beneath fresh bandages. But his thoughts weren't on pain. "Say it again." His voice was soft. Everyone in the room knew soft was dangerous. The scarred man, Park Jun-ho, his most trusted lieutenant, stood rigid near the door. The other 3 men present kept their eyes on the floor. "She was a foreigner, sir. African, based on her accent, possibly Nigerian. Mid to late 20s. She maintained pressure on your wound for approximately 20 minutes before we arrived. Seo-jun's fingers traced the edge of his desk. And then? I gave her your contact card. She took it without question. Jun-ho paused. She asked no questions about you. Demanded no payment. She simply helped. Silence filled the room. The kind of silence that preceded storms. She simply helped, Seo-jun repeated. He remembered fragments. Rain on his face. Cold concrete beneath his back. The weight of blood loss dragging him toward darkness. And then, warmth. A voice. Stay with me. Don't you dare give up. He remembered her hands, steady despite their trembling. He remembered her eyes, brown, deep, fierce with determination. He remembered the scent of something floral beneath the metallic tang of his own blood. And then nothing. Until he woke in this penthouse, surrounded by doctors who wouldn't meet his eyes. Find her. Jun-ho nodded. We're already searching CCTV footage from Myeongdong. Cross-referencing with immigration records for recent Nigerian arrivals. If she's in Seoul. She is. Seo-jun turned to the window. His reflection stared back, sharp jawline, cold eyes, the black ink of his tattoo visible above his collar. The mark of his bloodline. The crown that had been burned into his skin at 16, the night his father declared him heir. He touched the design unconsciously. Find her, he repeated. Before someone else does. Somewhere across Seoul. Daniela stared at the coffee cup in front of her, the cheapest thing on the menu, ordered 90 minutes ago, now completely cold. The cafe's owner kept glancing her way, probably wondering when she'd leave. She couldn't blame him. Her situation had grown desperate. The hostel she'd found offered a temporary solution, a shared room with 3 other travelers, payment due weekly. She'd managed the first week using the last of her emergency funds. But that was gone now. And her pride wouldn't let her make the one phone call that could solve everything. Lagos. Home. The Michael family compound, sprawling and golden in the Nigerian sun. Her father's voice echoing through marble hallways. Her mother's disappointed silence at every family gathering. The weight of expectations she could never meet. And the memory that had driven her away forever. She reached into her pocket and withdrew the black card. No name. Just a number. She'd nearly thrown it away twice now. Something about it felt dangerous. The weight of it, the quality of the paper, the way that scarred man had looked at her before handing it over. If you need anything. Daniela set the card on the table and stared at it. Anything was a powerful word. Her phone buzzed, a message from her hostel roommate, reminding her that checkout was in 3 hours if she couldn't make payment. 3 hours. That was how long she had before she'd be sleeping on Seoul streets. She thought about the man in the alley. The expensive suit. The precise cut of his clothing. The tattoo crawling up his neck like a declaration of something she didn't understand. Who was he? And why had an entire street feared him? Daniela picked up the card again. Her grandmother's voice whispered through memory, "Pride is a poor pillow, my child. It keeps no one warm at night." But her grandmother had never seen what happened when you accepted help from the wrong people. Daniela had. And she'd promised herself, never again. She slipped the card back into her pocket and left the cafe. 3 hours. She'd figure something out. She always did. 1 week later. The Hanyul Towers Executive Restaurant occupied the 47th floor, offering panoramic views of Seoul to those wealthy enough to afford its membership fees. Daniela stood near the service entrance, wearing the crisp uniform of a catering assistant. She'd gotten the job through a temp agency, no questions asked, cash payment, no contract. Survival mode. The irony wasn't lost on her. 8 months ago, she'd dined in restaurants like this. She'd worn designer dresses and spoke with confidence about market expansion strategies worth millions. Now she carried champagne trays and kept her eyes low. Pride is a poor pillow. But it still burned. New girl. The head server, a stern woman named Mrs. Kwon, appeared beside her. Table 12 needs attention. Water, then take their appetizer order. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact longer than necessary. Clear. Daniela nodded. Clear. She moved through the restaurant with practiced grace, weaving between tables occupied by Seoul's elite. Businessmen in tailored suits. Women dripping with jewelry. Conversations conducted in hushed tones about deals worth more than some countries' GDP. Table 12 sat near the windows. The best view in the room. She approached with her water pitcher, eyes appropriately lowered. 3 men occupied the table. 2 wore nearly identical dark suits, bodyguards, she realized, noting their watchful postures and barely concealed earpieces. The 3rd man sat facing the window. She could only see his profile, sharp jawline, hair slicked back, the collar of his shirt revealing the edge of something dark against his skin. A tattoo. Her heart stumbled. No. It couldn't be. Seoul had millions of men. Thousands with tattoos. The coincidence was impossible. But then he turned his head. And she saw his eyes. Dark. Intense. Unreadable. The same eyes that had found her face in that rain-soaked alley. The same eyes that had closed before she could learn his name. Recognition flickered across his expression. Then, nothing. Lee Seo-jun watched the woman with the water pitcher freeze mid-step. She recovered quickly. Anyone else might have missed the momentary stillness, but he'd spent his entire life reading people's micro-expressions. It was how he'd survived. She recognized him. His lieutenant had failed to find her. 7 days of searching CCTV footage, cross-referencing immigration records, canvassing Myeongdong for witnesses, nothing. She'd vanished like smoke. And now here she stood. 3 feet away. Wearing a catering uniform and holding a water pitcher with hands that trembled almost imperceptibly. Fate had a sense of humor. Water, please. His voice was soft. He watched her reaction, the slight tension in her shoulders, the deliberate steadiness of her breath. She was afraid but hiding it well. Good. Fear kept people alive. Daniela poured the water with hands that felt disconnected from her body. Stay calm. He probably doesn't remember. It was dark. He was barely conscious. But she could feel his gaze on her like physical weight. Heavy. Unmoving. He remembers. Is there anything else, sir? Her voice came out steady. Professional. Exactly what Mrs. Kwon had trained them for. But Seo-jun caught the Nigerian lilt beneath her careful Korean pronunciation. Found you. That will be all. He watched her retreat with the same unhurried attention he applied to business negotiations. Her posture was too refined for service work, straight back, graceful stride, chin held at an angle that spoke of breeding she was trying to hide. Who are you? Jun-ho leaned closer. Sir. The new server. His lieutenant followed his gaze. The African woman? I can have her background checked within the hour. No. Seo-jun's voice left no room for argument. I'll handle this personally. In the kitchen. Daniela's hands shook as she set down the water pitcher. He knows. He has to know. But what did that mean for her? She'd saved his life. That should count for something. Unless he wasn't supposed to live. The thought chilled her. She'd seen the way people avoided him in that alley. Heard the whispered warnings. He's dangerous. Don't touch him. What if she'd accidentally saved someone who deserved to die? What if she'd made an enemy simply by showing kindness? Mrs. Kwon appeared. Table 12 wants you to serve their main course. Daniela's stomach dropped. Me specifically? Yes. Mrs. Kwon's eyes narrowed. Is there a problem? Every possible problem. No. Back at the table. The bodyguards had relaxed slightly, or as much as men in their profession ever relaxed. Their main course had arrived, but the plate sat untouched before them. Seo-jun's attention remained on the kitchen door. Waiting. She emerged carrying his plate, Korean beef cooked to perfection, arranged with the precision of edible art. Her steps were steady now, her expression professionally blank. She's adapted. In 7 days, she'd found work in one of Seoul's most exclusive establishments. No identification issues, no language barriers severe enough to prevent employment. She's resourceful. Daniela set the plate before him with perfect form. Your meal, sir. He didn't look at the food. You've been in Seoul how long? The question was soft. Conversational. The kind of question employers asked new hires. But she heard the steel beneath it. 3 weeks, sir. Do you enjoy the city? His eyes held hers. Testing. It has its challenges. Something shifted in his expression, amusement, perhaps, though it didn't reach his eyes. Indeed it does. He reached into his jacket, and Daniela's heart stopped. But he only withdrew a business card, different from the black one she'd kept, this one cream-colored with elegant Korean text. If those challenges become overwhelming, he said, consider this a standing offer of assistance. She stared at the card but didn't take it. I don't accept help from strangers, sir. We're not strangers. His voice dropped lower. You held my wound together for 20 minutes in the rain. You gave up your dinner to keep a dying man company. He paused. That's not the behavior of strangers. That's the behavior of someone who should be rewarded. Daniela's composure cracked, just slightly, just enough for him to see. I don't want a reward. What do you want? The question hung between them. What did she want? Safety. Stability. A future that didn't depend on the goodwill of powerful men. She wanted to be invisible. And he was making that impossible. I want to return to work, sir. She left the business card untouched and turned away. She felt his gaze follow her across the entire restaurant. Later that evening. The shift ended at 11. Daniela changed out of her uniform in the staff locker room, exhaustion settling into her bones. Tomorrow she'd work another shift, earn another day's survival, and pray she never saw those cold dark eyes again. Impossible hope. She stepped into the service elevator. The doors began to close. A hand stopped them. Lee Seo-jun stood in the hallway, his bodyguards nowhere in sight. He'd removed his jacket, the sleeves of his white shirt were rolled to his elbows, revealing more of the intricate tattoo that crawled up his forearms. Black ink against pale skin. A dragon, she realized now. Wrapped in chains. Crowned with thorns. The mark of something ancient. Forgive the intrusion. His voice was different now, softer, less controlled. Almost uncertain. But I believe you have something that belongs to me. Daniela's hand moved involuntarily to her pocket. The black card. She'd kept it. Stupid. Why had she kept it? I tried to throw it away, she admitted. But you didn't. No. Why? The elevator doors tried to close again. He stopped them with his hand. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know why I stopped that night either. Everyone else kept walking. I should have kept walking. But you didn't. No. Seo-jun studied her face. The brown skin glowing under harsh fluorescent light. The curve of her cheekbones, the defiance in her eyes despite the fear beneath it. The way she held herself, like royalty in disguise. Who are you? The question burned. Have dinner with me. The words surprised even him. Daniela blinked. I just served your dinner. That doesn't count. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first genuine expression she'd seen on his face. Tomorrow. 7 o'clock. A proper dinner. My way of thanking you. I told you. You don't accept help from strangers. I remember. He tilted his head. Consider it a business meeting. You clearly have survival skills I could utilize. I'm offering employment. I have a job. You have a temporary position that pays barely enough to cover your hostel room. His eyes held hers. Don't insult us both by pretending otherwise. He'd investigated her. Of course he had. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it sparked something unexpected, anger, hot and clarifying. You had me followed? I had you protected. His voice hardened. Do you know how many people saw you help me that night? Do you know what happens to witnesses in my world? Daniela's anger faltered. His world. She remembered the fear in people's eyes. The whispered warnings. The way even his own men had approached him with careful deference. What exactly is your world? Seo-jun's expression shuttered. The warmth she'd glimpsed, brief, unexpected, disappeared behind the familiar mask of cold control. Tomorrow. 7 o'clock. My driver will collect you. He released the elevator doors and stepped back. Don't be late, Daniela. She froze. How do you know my name? The doors closed before he could answer. The next morning, Daniela sat on her hostel bed, staring at her phone. The black card and the cream business card lay beside her, evidence of a situation spiraling beyond her control. She'd Googled both numbers. Nothing. Unlisted. Untraceable. Ghost numbers. Her roommate, a young German backpacker named Elise, emerged from the bathroom. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, Daniela murmured. I think I've attracted one. She tried a different approach. Googling Korean businessman tattoo Myeongdong yielded nothing useful. Seoul businessman Tower Hanyul brought up corporate profiles, none matching the face she remembered. But then she tried something else. Seoul Mafia tattoo dragon. The results made her blood run cold. Article after article appeared, English-language pieces on Korean organized crime, the historical significance of tattoos in gang identification, the symbolism of specific designs. And one image that stopped her breath. A dragon wrapped in chains. Crowned with thorns. The same design she'd seen on his arm. The article called it the Mark of the Black Crown, Seoul's most powerful criminal organization, rumored to control everything from construction contracts to international shipping. Their leader's identity remained unknown. But the organization's reach was legendary. Feared even by other gangs. Daniela's hands shook as she kept reading. Assassinations. Hostile takeovers. Enemies who disappeared without trace. A network spanning Korea, Japan, Singapore, Dubai. And one name whispered more often than any other. The Black Crown. Not a title. A person. The current leader, the article stated, assumed power following his father's death 12 years ago. His identity is protected by layers of corporate holdings and legitimate business fronts. Those who have seen his face rarely speak of it. Because they can't, Daniela realized. Because they are dead. She stared at the cream business card. He wants to have dinner. The leader of Seoul's most powerful criminal organization wants to have dinner. With her. Hanyul Tower. Same morning. She found us. Junho set a tablet before Seo-jun, displaying search analytics. She Googled Korean businessman tattoo about an hour ago. Then Seoul Mafia tattoo dragon. Seo-jun studied the data without expression. She's intelligent. She's a liability. Junho's voice carried the weight of years of protection. If she knows who you are. She saved my life. With respect, sir, many have served you over the years. That doesn't grant them immunity from protocol. Seo-jun rose from his desk. The city sprawled beneath his windows, 20 million souls going about their lives, unaware that decisions made in this room shaped their economy, their safety, their futures. Protocol didn't save me in that alley. He turned to face his lieutenant. She did. And if she runs, then I'll find her. If she talks. Seo-jun's eyes hardened. She won't. You can't know that. I know. The certainty in his voice silenced Junho. 20 years of service had taught him to recognize when Seo-jun's mind was set. This was one of those moments. Then what would you have me do? Continue the protection detail. Quietly. Seo-jun returned to his desk. And find out everything about her life before Seoul. Everything. And if her past proves complicated. Seo-jun's lips curved, not quite a smile. Then we'll be complicated together. That evening. 7 o'clock. Daniela stood outside her hostel, wearing the only nice dress she'd packed, a simple black sheath that had survived 3 weeks of suitcase compression remarkably well. She shouldn't be here. Every logical instinct screamed at her to run. Take the first flight to anywhere. Disappear before she became another unnamed casualty in a world she didn't understand. But logic had never been her strongest guide. A black car, the same model she'd seen in the alley, pulled to the curb. The driver emerged and opened the rear door. Miss Michael? Last chance, she told herself. Walk away now. But her grandmother's voice whispered, courage isn't the absence of fear, my child. It's the choice to move forward despite it. Daniela climbed into the car. The restaurant occupied a private floor in a building with no visible signage. She was escorted through hallways of understated elegance, Korean minimalism at its most refined, until she reached a dining room designed for intimacy. One table, two chairs, and Lee Seo-jun, standing by the window. He turned as she entered. Something flickered in his eyes, appreciation, perhaps, or satisfaction at seeing her arrive. You came. You knew I would. I hoped. He gestured to the table. Please. The meal was extraordinary. Course after course arrived, traditional Korean dishes elevated to art, flavors she couldn't identify blending in ways she'd never experienced. Wine from bottles without price tags. Service so subtle it felt like magic. But Daniela couldn't taste any of it. You're not eating. Seo-jun's observation came between courses, delivered with that same unsettling softness. I'm finding it difficult to enjoy food while wondering if this is my last meal. For a moment, genuine surprise crossed his features. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. The sound transformed him. The cold calculation melted away, replaced by something almost boyish, almost human. You think I brought you here to harm you? I know who you are. She met his eyes directly. What you are. The laughter died. Silence stretched between them, heavy, charged, dangerous. And what am I, Daniela? The Black Crown. The name landed like a blade between them. Seo-jun's expression revealed nothing. But she noticed his hand tighten around his wine glass, the only sign of tension. You've been busy. I've been careful. And yet you came anyway. His eyes held hers. Testing. Always testing. Why? Daniela considered lying. She was good at lies, had crafted them like armor for years, protecting herself from expectations she couldn't meet and judgments she couldn't bear. But something in his gaze stripped her pretenses bare. Because you could have killed me already, she said quietly. You know where I live. You know where I work. You've had a week to make me disappear, and instead, you sent bodyguards to protect me without my knowledge. She paused. Either you're playing a very long game, or you actually meant what you said about thanking me. Seo-jun set down his wine glass. Both can be true. He rose from his chair and moved to the window. The city lights painted him in shades of gold and shadow, catching the tattoo visible at his collar, the sharp lines of his profile against the glass. When I was 16, he said, my father burned this mark into my skin. Not a tattoo artist, my father himself, using traditional methods. He said pain was the only teacher that lasted. Daniela said nothing. Let him speak. I've killed men. Ordered deaths. Built an empire on the bones of my enemies and the silence of my allies. He turned to face her. I am everything the articles say and more. Then why am I here? Seo-jun approached the table slowly. He stopped close enough that she could see the details of his tattoo clearly, the dragon's scales, the thorn's vicious curves, the chains that bound and contained something ancient and terrible. Because you saw me bleeding in an alley, he said, and you chose compassion over fear. He knelt beside her chair, the most powerful criminal in Seoul, kneeling at her feet. In my world, he continued, compassion is weakness. It's exploited, punished, destroyed. But you offered it anyway. To a stranger. In a city that isn't yours. His voice dropped lower. I've spent 36 years surrounded by people who fear me. You're the first person in my memory who chose to help me instead. Daniela's heart pounded. That doesn't mean I'm not afraid of you now. Fear is wise. His eyes never left hers. But I would never hurt you, Daniela. Not if I had to burn this city to the ground first. The intensity of his vow stole her breath. She should run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. But she stayed frozen in that moment, caught between terror and something far more dangerous. Understanding. He rose, stepping back to a respectful distance. Stay in Seoul. Let me protect you while you rebuild whatever brought you here. No conditions. No obligations. Just, let me repay what you gave me that night. And if I refuse? His expression softened, something almost like pain flickering behind his eyes. Then I'll make sure you reach whatever destination you choose safely. You'll never see me again. Daniela stared at him. The Black Crown. Seoul's most feared man. Offering her freedom without conditions. Either he was the most manipulative person she'd ever met, or something she'd done that rainy night had genuinely changed him. I need time. The words came before she could overthink them. To consider your offer. To decide what I want. Seo-jun nodded. Take all the time you need. He withdrew a phone from his jacket. Expensive, sleek, clearly new. This is yours. My direct number is programmed in. Call it for anything, safety concerns, questions, or simply to talk. She took the phone. Their fingers brushed. Electricity. Both of them felt it. Neither acknowledged it. My driver will take you home. He stepped back, restoring professional distance. Sleep well, Daniela Michael. She paused at the door. You still haven't told me how you know my full name. His lips curved. Some mysteries are worth preserving. She left without responding. But she kept the phone. 1 week later. Daniela had not called the number. But she'd kept the phone charged. Kept it close. Just in case. Her shifts at Hanyul Tower continued unchanged, carrying trays, serving meals, keeping her eyes low. Lee Seo-jun hadn't appeared in the restaurant since that dinner. Giving her space. Or watching from a distance she couldn't detect. With him, both seemed equally possible. But other things had changed. Her hostel room had been upgraded, mysteriously, without request, to a private space with its own bathroom. When she'd questioned the front desk, they'd mumbled something about a clerical error and a need to reorganize. Lies. She knew his handwriting now. Her work shifts began yielding larger tips, far larger than anyone else received. The temp agency called to offer her a permanent position, though she'd never applied for one. His invisible hand. Moving pieces she couldn't see. Lagos. 3 years earlier. Daniela had stood in her father's office, watching him sign documents that would seal her fate. The Adeyemi family is ideal, he'd said without looking up. Their son manages their European investments. You'll want for nothing. I don't want their son. You don't know what you want. The fight that followed had shattered everything. She'd said things that couldn't be unsaid. Revealed truths that couldn't be unrevealed. By morning, she'd left the compound with 3 suitcases and a promise to herself. Never again would a powerful man decide her future. The irony burned now. She'd fled one cage only to walk into another, this one gilded with protection she hadn't asked for, maintained by a man who saw more than she wanted him to see. History repeating. Or was it? Hanyul Tower. Friday evening. The restaurant was busier than usual, some corporate celebration requiring additional staff. Daniela moved between tables with mechanical precision, her mind elsewhere. She didn't notice the new guests until she heard her name. Daniela. The voice froze her mid-step. No. It couldn't be. She turned slowly. A man stood near the entrance, Nigerian, early 30s, wearing a suit that screamed money. His face was familiar in ways that made her stomach clench. Chidi Adeyemi. The man she'd been meant to marry. It is you. He crossed the restaurant, ignoring the hostess's attempts to guide him. His eyes swept over her uniform, her tray, her obvious employment. And he smiled. The great Daniela Michael, serving tables in Seoul. His voice carried the cruelty she remembered too well. Your father would be so proud. Heat flooded her face, shame, anger, memories she'd buried clawing their way back. What are you doing here? Business expansion. What else? He leaned closer. But this is an unexpected bonus. Mrs. Kwon approached, concern evident. Is there a problem? No problem. Chidi's smile widened. Just reconnecting with an old friend. Daniela gripped her tray like a weapon. We were never friends. She walked away. But she felt his eyes follow her. Hunting. The roof of Hanyul Tower. Daniela escaped during her break, finding solace 47 floors above the city. The night air bit at her skin, but she welcomed the cold. Clear thinking required clear feeling. Her phone buzzed. Not the work phone, the one he'd given her. Unknown, are you safe? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. How had he known she needed to be asked? I'm fine, she typed back. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Unknown, I saw the footage. The man who approached you, do you know him? Of course he had cameras. Of course he was watching. She should have felt violated. Instead, she felt relieved. His name is Chidi Adeyemi, she replied. From Lagos. We have history. Unknown, what kind of history? Daniela stared at the screen. The full truth sat heavy on her tongue, the arranged marriage, the manipulation, the night Chidi had cornered her at a family party and made his expectations very clear. The fear that had driven her to leave everything behind. Complicated, she typed. Unknown, do you need me to make him disappear? She laughed, sudden, raw, surprising herself. Are you joking? Unknown, I never joke about protection. The words should have horrified her. Instead, warmth bloomed in her chest, dangerous, unwanted, undeniable. Don't do anything, she typed. He's not worth the trouble. Unknown, you're wrong about that. But I'll respect your wishes. A pause. Unknown, for now. 3 days later. Chidi Adeyemi had not left Seoul. Daniela saw him everywhere, outside her hostel, near her favorite coffee shop, in the lobby of Hanyul Tower with business meetings that seemed conveniently timed. Stalking. But always just within legal boundaries. Always with that smile. She stopped leaving her room after dark. Started checking locks 3 times before sleeping. And kept the phone he'd given her under her pillow. Just in case. Hanyul Tower. Thursday afternoon. The corporate event had lasted 2 days, with Adeyemi Holdings listed among the sponsors. Chidi's presence was now expected, even welcomed by the management who saw only his wealth. They didn't see the way he watched Daniela. But someone else did. Lee Seo-jun had not entered the restaurant since their dinner. Respecting her space. But his surveillance had intensified the moment she'd named Chidi Adeyemi. Jun-ho's report lay open on his desk. Chidi Adeyemi. Age 32. Heir to Adeyemi Holdings, a Nigerian investment conglomerate with interests in European real estate. Previous engagement to Daniela Michael, broken 3 years ago under undisclosed circumstances. Current visit to Seoul, business development in Korean luxury markets. The official story. But there was more. Jun-ho had dug deeper. 3 restraining orders filed against Adeyemi in London. All mysteriously withdrawn. 2 women who'd accused him of harassment, one had relocated to Australia, the other had vanished entirely. Nigerian police involvement in an incident at a family party 3 years ago. Records sealed. Seo-jun read every word. His hands did not shake. But something inside him, something cold and ancient, woke up. The restaurant. That same evening. Daniela carried a tray of champagne through the crowded room, staying as far from Adeyemi's table as possible. Almost done. 2 more hours, and she'd be free. 2 more hours of keeping her head down. 2 more. There you are. Chidi appeared beside her, blocking her path. His cologne invaded her space, expensive, cloying, impossible to escape. I've been hoping we could talk. I have nothing to say to you. She tried to step around him. He moved with her. Blocking. Your father is worried, he said, voice low. He thinks something happened to you. Maybe you should call him. Tell him you're safe. The threat was clear. Call home, or I'll tell them where you are. Move. Her voice came out harder than expected. Please. Chidi's smile didn't falter. We could have been so good together, Danny. Don't you remember? How well our families fit. How happy everyone was. Everyone except me, she didn't say. Everyone except the girl you cornered in your father's library. I remember enough. She pushed past him, tray shaking. His hand closed around her arm. Tight. Controlling. I think you need to remember better. I think you need to release her arm. That voice. Cold. Soft. Deadly. Chidi turned. Lee Seo-jun stood 5 feet away, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the entire catering staff earned in a year. His expression revealed nothing. But his eyes. God, his eyes. They promised violence so controlled it would never be proven. This is a private conversation, Chidi said, releasing Daniela's arm but not stepping back. In my restaurant. During my event. Seo-jun tilted his head. Nothing here is private from me. Recognition flickered across Chidi's face. He knows who this is. Mr. Lee. Chidi's smile returned, though strain showed at its edges. I didn't realize Hanyul Tower's chairman involved himself in staff management. Seo-jun didn't move. Didn't blink. This particular staff member saved my life. The words hung in the air. Around them, the restaurant had grown quiet, other guests sensing danger without understanding its source. I see. Chidi's eyes cut to Daniela, something ugly flashing through them. She's always been good at attaching herself to powerful men. The insult landed like a slap. Daniela felt her face burn, with rage, with humiliation, with the old familiar shame of never being enough. But before she could respond, Seo-jun spoke again. Leave. One word. Not raised. Not emphasized. Final. I'm a paying customer. You're a guest in my building. Seo-jun's voice dropped even lower. And you've just insulted someone under my protection. So you can leave voluntarily, with your dignity intact. Or my security team can escort you out through the service entrance, where the cameras don't reach. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Chidi's face drained of color. He looked at Daniela one last time, something dark and promised in his eyes, then turned and walked out. The restaurant noise gradually resumed. But the tension remained. Seo-jun approached her slowly. His eyes swept over her face, her trembling hands, the angry red marks already forming on her arm. Are you hurt? Daniela shook her head. Words wouldn't come. Come with me. Not a request. But gentle, somehow. She followed him out of the restaurant, through corridors she'd never seen, into an elevator that required a special key. Neither spoke. But something had shifted. The private office. 50 floors above the city. Glass walls overlooking Seoul's endless lights. Furniture that spoke of power without ostentation. Daniela stood in the center of the room, still holding her empty tray. Seo-jun took it from her hands gently. Sit. She Saturday. He disappeared briefly, returning with a first aid kit and something that looked like expensive whiskey. For the shock, he said, pressing a glass into her hand. She drank without tasting it. The burn helped. He'll come back. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. He always comes back. Seo-jun knelt before her, that same position from their dinner, powerful man reduced to supplicant. Not this time. You don't understand. The words tumbled out now, breaking through walls she'd built for years. His family owns half of Lagos's real estate. My family owes them favors going back decades. If he tells my father where I am... Daniela. His voice cut through her spiral. His hands, warm, steady, cupped her face. When had he moved so close? Look at me. She did. Those cold dark eyes had transformed, still intense, still unreadable, but warm now. Burning with something she couldn't name. Whatever history exists between your families, whatever debts you think bind you, none of it matters here. His thumbs brushed her cheeks, wiping tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. You're in my city. Under my protection. And no one, not Chidi Adeyemi, not your father, not God himself, will touch you while I draw breath. The vow. Absolute. Uncompromising. Terrifying in its totality. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why do you care so much about someone you barely know? Seo-jun's hands fell from her face. He sat back on his heels, studying her with an expression she couldn't interpret. Do you remember what you said in the alley? She shook her head. The memories were fragmented. Rain, blood, fear. You said, don't you dare give up. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. No one has ever said that to me. Not my father, who saw me only as his successor. Not my men, who serve out of fear or ambition. Not anyone. He looked away, the first time she'd seen him avoid her gaze. You were starving. Alone. Stranded in a city that wasn't yours. And you chose to save a stranger anyway. He stood, moving to the window. His reflection showed what his face wouldn't: vulnerability. I've spent my entire life being feared. It's efficient. It's necessary. It keeps me alive. He paused. But you weren't afraid of me. Not in that moment. You were afraid for me. The distinction landed like revelation. For him. Not of him. The difference, he continued, may seem small. But to someone like me, it was everything. Daniela rose slowly. She approached him at the window, their reflections overlapping in the glass, two shadows against Seoul's infinite lights. I'm afraid now. He turned. So close. Of me. Of this. She gestured between them, the impossible connection, the dangerous attraction, the pull that defied every logical instinct. I ran from one powerful man who wanted to control me. I can't. Her voice broke. Seo-jun's hand lifted, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. I don't want to control you, Daniela. His voice was hoarse. I want to protect you. There's a difference. How do I know that? You don't. The honesty startled her. You can only trust that my actions will prove my words. And I have time. His eyes held hers. I have nothing but time. The moment stretched. Tension. Heat. Possibility. Then, his phone rang. The spell shattered. Seo-jun stepped back, expression shuddering as he answered. His voice shifted to rapid Korean, commands, questions, something that made his jaw tighten. When he hung up, the warmth was gone. The black crown had returned. What's wrong? Adeyemi Holdings. His voice was ice. They just filed a business complaint against Hanyul Tower. Claims of discriminatory treatment toward international guests. Chidi's retaliation. Already beginning. This is my fault. Nothing is your fault. Seo-jun's hand gripped her shoulder, firm, grounding. He chose to threaten someone under my protection. Now he'll learn why no one does that twice. Fear flickered through her. What are you going to do? His smile was cold. Beautiful. Terrifying. Whatever is necessary. The next 72 hours changed everything. Daniela watched from the sidelines as Lee Seo-jun systematically disassembled Chidi Adeyemi's Korean ambitions. First, the business complaint disappeared. Not withdrawn, vanished. As if it had never been filed. When Chidi's lawyers investigated, they found only clerical errors and apologetic officials who couldn't explain the confusion. Second, Adeyemi Holdings' Korean partners began canceling meetings. Scheduling conflicts. Previous commitments. A sudden reluctance to return calls. The invisible hand at work. Third, information began surfacing. Anonymous tips to Korean business journalists about Adeyemi Holdings' questionable practices in their European ventures. Nothing illegal, yet. But enough to raise eyebrows. Reputation death by 1,000 cuts. Daniela understood what she was witnessing. Power in its purest form. Not violence, though she suspected that remained available. But destruction so elegant it couldn't be traced. By the fourth day, Chidi Adeyemi left Seoul. No announcement. No farewell. Just a private jet departing Incheon at 3 a.m., carrying a man whose empire had just received its first serious wound. But Daniela knew this wasn't over. The hostel. That same week. She found flowers outside her door. Not from Seo-jun. His gifts were practical, upgraded accommodations, protection she could feel but never see, a job offer she still hadn't accepted. No, these flowers were different. Lilies. White and funeral bright. The card attached read simply. You can't hide forever, Danny. I always find what belongs to me. See. Her hands shook as she burned the card. But she didn't call Seo-jun. Not yet. She needed to handle this herself. 3 days later, Daniela stood outside Hanyul Tower's executive entrance, wearing borrowed clothes and borrowed courage. She'd made her decision. The security team recognized her now. They'd been watching her for weeks, after all. They let her pass without question, escorting her to the same elevator that required the special key. Someone knew she was coming. Lee Seo-jun stood when she entered his office. His expression revealed nothing, but she caught the slight widening of his eyes. The quickened breath. The tension in his shoulders. He hadn't expected this. "I need your help." The words cost her everything. 3 years of independence. Years of running. A lifetime of promised self-reliance. Gone in 4 syllables. Seo-jun didn't speak. He crossed the room slowly, predator approaching prey that had finally stopped running, and stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne. Subtle. Expensive. Memorable. What happened? She told him about the flowers. About the card. About the fear that had driven her to finally accept what she'd been avoiding. She couldn't do this alone. When she finished, Seo-jun's expression had hardened into something terrifying. Calm rage. The most dangerous kind. "Where is the card?" "I burned it." "The flowers?" "In the trash." He nodded slowly. "You came to me." "I had nowhere else to go." Something flickered in his eyes, hurt, perhaps, quickly suppressed. "Is that the only reason?" The question hung between them. Heavy with implication. Daniela thought about lying. It would be easier. Safer. But she was so tired of safe. "No." One word. Everything. Seo-jun's control cracked. Just slightly, just enough for her to see the man beneath the mask. Wanting. Hoping. Afraid. He didn't move. Didn't reach for her. But his voice dropped to something intimate. "What else?" "I trust you." The admission surprised them both. "Despite everything I've learned about what you are, despite every reason I should run." She took a breath. "I trust you. I don't understand it. I don't know if it's wise. But it's true." Seo-jun closed his eyes. When he opened them, they gleamed with something raw. Hope. Terrifying, vulnerable hope. "Then stay with me." "What?" "Not," he stepped back, hands raised. "Not like that. I have properties throughout Seoul. Private. Secure. Places where Adeyemi could never reach you. Stay there until this is resolved. And after?" His jaw tightened. "After, you can decide what you want. No obligations. No conditions. Just safety." The offer. Shelter without strings. Protection without payment. Could she trust it? Why? The question emerged before she could stop it. "Why are you doing all of this? The protection. The help with Chidi. Now offering me a place to stay." She shook her head. "I saved your life once. Does that really deserve all of this?" Seo-jun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Do you know what I thought about, in that alley? When I was bleeding out. When I was sure I was going to die." She shook her head. "I thought about how alone I was." His words struck her like blows. "I have an empire. Men who would die for me. Wealth beyond counting." And in that moment, bleeding on cold concrete, I realized none of it mattered. He turned to the window. "Then you appeared. You knelt beside me. You gave me your last meal and held my wound together and told me not to give up." He faced her. Raw. Exposed. "You stayed with me when everyone else walked away." Silence stretched between them. Understanding blooming. "I'm not doing this because you saved my life," he said. "I'm doing this because you saw me. Not the black crown. Not the monster everyone fears. You saw a man dying in an alley, and you chose compassion." His voice broke, slightly, almost imperceptibly. "No one has ever seen me like that." Daniela felt something shift inside her. Walls crumbling. Defenses failing. She crossed the distance between them. Slowly. Deliberately. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. She stopped close enough to touch. "I see you now." His hand rose, trembling, uncertain, to cup her face. "Daniela. I see you." The dam broke. He kissed her. Finally. Not gentle, desperate. Not controlled, consuming. Every wall between them crumbled in that single moment. Her hands found his chest, his neck, his hair. His arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. Clinging. Claiming. Surrendering. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. "Stay with me," he whispered against her lips. "Please. Stay." "Yes." The words sealed something neither could name. But in the shadows, enemies were watching. And the war for Daniela Michael's heart was only beginning. 2 weeks later, Daniela had settled into the penthouse like it had always been waiting for her. The apartment occupied the top floor of a building with no name, one of Seojun's many properties, invisible to public record. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's northern mountains. The decor was minimal, elegant, warm. Home. Or as close as she'd felt to one in years. Seojun visited each evening. Sometimes for dinner. Sometimes just to talk. Sometimes simply to exist in the same space, reading reports while she worked on freelance consulting projects he'd helped her secure. Building something. Slowly. Carefully. Together. But shadows gathered. Lagos. The Michael family compound. Daniela's father set down his phone. His face, aged, stern, unyielding, revealed nothing. But his hands trembled. "She's in Seoul." His wife looked up from her embroidery. "The Adeyemi boy found her?" "Yes." Michael Sr.'s jaw tightened. "And lost her to someone more powerful." Silence. Heavy with implication. "Who?" Lee Seojun, Korean businessman. Very connected. Understanding flickered in his wife's eyes. Connected meant something specific in their world. Connected meant dangerous. She's protecting herself again. She's hiding again. His voice hardened. Running from her responsibilities. From her family. From us. She's running from Chidi. She was supposed to marry Chidi. He slammed his palm against the desk. The Adeyemi alliance would have secured our position for generations. Instead, she threw it all away because of one misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? His wife's voice cut like steel. Rare. Powerful. Is that what you call what he did to her? What she told us? She exaggerated. She always exaggerates. She's dramatic, emotional. She is your daughter. Silence. Heavier now. And she is lost. His voice dropped. Wandering the world, alone, vulnerable. While our enemies circle and our alliances crumble. He stood. I'm bringing her home. She won't come willingly. His smile was cold. Then she won't have a choice. So, that same evening, Daniela felt the change before she understood it. She was cooking dinner, something simple, something Nigerian, something that made the penthouse smell like home, when her phone buzzed. The new phone. The one he'd given her. Seojun, I'm running late. Meeting extended. Will explain when I arrive. Normal enough. But something in his word choice? Will explain. He never explained. He simply arrived and let his presence speak. 10 minutes later, the building's security called. Miss Michael? You have a visitor. Her blood chilled. He always came alone. He never needed to be announced. Who? A pause. He says he's your brother. The world stopped. Daniela hadn't spoken to Tobias in 3 years. Not since the night she'd left Lagos. Not since he'd chosen family loyalty over sibling truth. Her brother had been one of them. Tell him I'm not here. Another pause. He says he knows you're here. He says he's not leaving until you speak with him. Daniela closed her eyes. The past always catches up. Always. Send him up. 3 minutes later. The elevator doors opened. Tobias Michael stepped into the penthouse, and Daniela saw immediately how much 3 years had changed him. He was thinner. Harder. The boyish charm she remembered had calcified into something sharper, something that reminded her uncomfortably of their father. Danny. The nickname stabbed at her heart. He'd always called her Danny. Before everything changed. Tobias. Silence. heavy with history. Father sent me. Of course he did. She kept the kitchen island between them. He couldn't be bothered to come himself. He thought you'd respond better to family. The word twisted like a knife. Family. As if that word hadn't been weaponized against her for years. What does he want? Tobias sighed. For a moment, just a moment, she saw the brother she remembered, tired, conflicted, caught between loyalty and love. He wants you to come home. No. Danny. No. She stepped back, arms crossing her chest. I left for a reason. That reason hasn't changed. The Adeyemi situation has been resolved. Her laugh was bitter. Resolved? What does that mean? Chidi promised to behave? Father negotiated a new arrangement. Tobias's expression flickered. Guilt. He knew. The engagement is off. The engagement has been off for 3 years. Formally, I mean. Publicly. He took a breath. Father ended negotiations completely. There will be no alliance with the Adeyemi family. Suspicion coiled. Why now? Tobias hesitated. Why now, Tobias? Because. He looked away. Because Chidi's behavior in Seoul created problems. Problems that reached father's ears. Problems he couldn't ignore. Seo-jun. The invisible hand again. Making moves she couldn't see. What did he do? The man you're with. Lee Seo-jun. Tobias met her eyes. He's more than a businessman, isn't he? Daniela said nothing. Father received information. About Chidi's patterns. About other women. About what he did to you being part of something larger. Tobias's voice dropped. Father didn't believe you 3 years ago. But he believes the evidence now. Evidence. Seo-jun had sent evidence. To her family. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or violated. So he believes me now. Her voice came out flat. 3 years too late. After I've built a life without him. After I've proven I don't need the Michael name to survive. He's your father. He's a man who chose a business alliance over his daughter's safety. The words burned coming out. He heard what Chidi did to me, what he tried to do, and called it a misunderstanding. Tobias flinched. Good. He let me leave thinking I was overdramatic. Emotional. That I'd come to my senses and return. She shook her head. I built a life, Tobias. Alone. Without the family money, without the family name, without anyone protecting me. Until now. The observation landed like a blow. Until now. Until Seo-jun. That's different. Is it? Tobias tilted his head. From where I stand, it looks like you traded one powerful man's protection for another. Rage flared, hot, clarifying. He doesn't own me. He doesn't control me. He offered help, and I accepted it on my terms. And what terms are those? My terms. She stepped toward him. You don't get to judge my choices. Not after everything. Not after you stood by while father dismissed what happened to me. Tobias's mask cracked. Pain leaked through. I was wrong. The words hung between them. I was wrong, Danny. I should have believed you. I should have stood with you. I should have. His voice broke. I should have been your brother. Silence. Heavier than before. You should have. She couldn't forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she could acknowledge the truth in his regret. Go home, Tobias. Father won't stop. Then let him try. She straightened. I'm not the girl who fled Lagos 3 years ago. I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm not alone. The elevator opened behind him. Lee Seo-jun stepped into the penthouse. His expression was unreadable, that familiar mask of cold control, but his eyes swept the room instantly. Assessing. Calculating. Protecting. Miss Michael. His voice was ice. Is everything all right? Daniela looked at her brother. At the man who'd chosen family over truth. At the past she couldn't escape but could finally face. Yes. She crossed to Seo-jun's side. Choosing. My brother was just leaving. Daniela watched her brother disappear into the elevator, carrying questions she wasn't ready to answer and truths she wasn't ready to face. Behind her, Lee Seo-jun's presence radiated warmth and danger in equal measure, the only man who'd ever seen her as more than a family asset. But as the doors closed on Tobias's haunted expression, Daniela couldn't shake one terrible thought. If her family knew where she was? If Chidi's humiliation had reached Lagos? If the Black Crown's protection had become public knowledge? Then forces were already in motion that neither love nor power could stop. And the collision would destroy everything she'd built, or everyone she'd come to love. The penthouse felt different after Tobias left. Smaller somehow. More fragile. As if the walls that had sheltered Daniela for 2 weeks had suddenly revealed themselves as paper-thin. Lee Seo-jun stood by the windows, watching the city lights blur into the night. He hadn't spoken since her brother's departure, hadn't asked questions, hadn't demanded explanations. Waiting. Always waiting for her to be ready. You sent evidence to my father. It wasn't a question. Seo-jun turned slowly. His expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Acknowledgement. Yes. Without asking me. Yes. Daniela crossed her arms. The anger she expected to feel wasn't there. Instead, something more complicated churned in her chest. Gratitude. Frustration. Understanding. Why? Seo-jun approached her slowly. Each step deliberate. Measured. Giving her space to retreat. She didn't. Because your father needed to see the truth. His voice was soft. Because protecting you meant more than keeping you safe from Adeyemi. It meant clearing your name with those who should have believed you from the beginning. That wasn't your decision to make. No. He stopped an arm's length away. It wasn't. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Charged. Are you angry? Daniela considered the question. Truly considered it. I should be. She uncrossed her arms. You went behind my back. Made moves that affected my family without consulting me. Treated my past like a problem to be solved. His jaw tightened. Accepting the accusation. But I'm not angry, she continued. Because for the first time in 3 years, my father knows the truth. Not because I convinced him, I tried that and failed. But because someone with power made him listen. She stepped closer. You did what I couldn't do alone. Relief flickered across his features. Brief. Quickly suppressed. I should have asked you first. Yes. I won't make that mistake again. Good. Another silence. Different now. Warmer. Your brother. Seo-jun's voice carried a question he wasn't quite asking. Will he be a problem? Daniela thought about Tobias. About the boy who taught her to ride a bicycle in the compound courtyard. About the man who'd chosen silence when she'd needed his voice. About the guilt she'd seen cracking through his mask tonight. I don't know. Honesty. The only thing she could offer. He seemed conflicted. Tobias has always been conflicted. She moved to the kitchen, needing something to do with her hands. He wants to be a good man. But he also wants our father's approval. Those two things have never aligned. She began cleaning up the dinner she'd been preparing before everything shattered. My father is powerful. In Lagos. In Nigerian business circles. She set a pot in the sink. Not like you. Not the same kind of power. But powerful enough that crossing him has consequences. Seo-jun moved to lean against the counter, watching her work. And your brother fears those consequences. Everyone does. She turned on the water. That's how my father keeps control. Through fear. Through obligation. Through making sure everyone around him needs him more than they need their own integrity. The parallel hung unspoken. 2 worlds built on fear. 2 men who ruled through it. I'm not like him. Seo-jun's voice was quiet. Almost defensive. Daniela looked up. I know. Do you? The question carried weight. Vulnerability. The Black Crown, uncertain. My father uses fear to control. She dried her hands slowly. You use fear to protect. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. She faced him fully. My father would never kneel before someone weaker than him. Would never explain himself. Would never ask if I was angry instead of assuming he was right. She stepped closer. You're not like him. You're not like any of them. Something broke in his expression. Relief. Hope. Fear of hoping. Daniela. I'm not running anymore. The words emerged with certainty she hadn't known she possessed. Whatever comes next, my family, Chidi, all of it, I'm not running. Not from them. She reached for his hand. And not from you. His fingers interlaced with hers. Warm. Strong. Trembling slightly. You're certain? Yes. He pulled her closer. Slowly. Giving her every chance to retreat. She didn't. His forehead pressed against hers. I will protect you, he whispered. From everything. From everyone. Even from myself, if necessary. I don't need protection from you. You might. His voice was raw. This world I live in, the things I've done, the enemies I've made. I've seen your world. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I've seen your power. Your violence. Your control. And I've also seen you. The man beneath the crown. Her hand rose to his cheek. I choose you. The words sealed something. A covenant. A promise. He kissed her then. Gentle. Reverent. Consuming. And for one perfect moment, nothing else existed. 3 days later. The peace couldn't last. They both knew it. But for 3 perfect days, they pretended otherwise. Morning. Daniela woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The bed beside her was empty, but still warm. He'd stayed. He always stayed now. She found him in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with the same precise attention he applied to business negotiations. You cook. He glanced up, something soft in his expression. You sound surprised. I am. She settled onto a bar stool. I assumed you had people for that. I have people for everything. He slid a plate toward her. But some things are worth doing yourself. The meal was simple, eggs, rice, vegetables, but prepared with obvious care. My mother taught me. The admission startled her. He rarely spoke of family. Before she died, he continued, she insisted I learn to feed myself. Said a man who couldn't cook was a man who couldn't survive alone. She sounds wise. She was. His voice carried old grief. The only person my father ever truly loved. And the only person who ever saw him as human. Parallels again. Patterns repeating. Is that why you? She trailed off, uncertain how to phrase it. Why I what? Why you noticed me? In the alley. She met his eyes. Because I saw you as human. Seo-jun was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps. He set down his utensils. My mother used to say that the most powerful men were also the loneliest. That crowns create distance. That fear is efficient but isolating. He looked at her. Raw. Exposed. She was right. I've spent 20 years being feared. Being obeyed. Being alone in rooms full of people. His hand reached across the counter, finding hers. And then you appeared. Starving and alone and choosing compassion anyway. Choosing to stay when everyone else ran. His grip tightened. You reminded me of her. Of who I might have been if I'd had different choices. Daniela turned her hand to interlace their fingers. You still have choices. Do I? Yes. She squeezed his hand. You chose to find me. To protect me. To let me in. She paused. Those were choices. Good ones. Something flickered in his eyes. Hope. Fragile and terrified. I'm not a good man, Daniela. Maybe not. She smiled softly. But you're trying to be. That counts for something. The moment stretched. Warm. Intimate. Honest. His phone shattered it. Seo-jun's expression shifted instantly. The warmth vanished behind. Familiar walls. Jun-ho. He listened for 30 seconds. His jaw tightened. I'm on my way. He hung up. What's wrong? Adeyemi is back. Ice flooded her veins. In Seoul? No. His voice was cold. In Lagos. Meeting with your father. The world tilted. Meeting about what? Seo-jun's eyes held hers. Apology. Fury. Protection. About you. Lagos. The Michael compound. Victor Michael sat across from Chidi Adeyemi, studying the younger man with new eyes. 3 weeks ago, he'd received a file. Anonymous. Detailed. Devastating. Documentation of Chidi's patterns spanning 5 years and 4 countries. Women who'd been silenced. Accusations that had been buried. A history that painted his daughter's claims in horrifying new light. He'd been wrong. The realization burned. But Victor Michael had not built an empire by admitting mistakes publicly. He'd learned to adapt. To pivot. To transform failures into opportunities. You understand why I ended negotiations? Chidi's smile didn't reach his eyes. I understand you received certain materials. From interested parties. Materials that painted you unfavorably. Materials that were fabricated. Chidi leaned forward. Your daughter has apparently found a powerful protector. One with resources to manufacture evidence. Victor considered this. Was it possible? Had he been manipulated? But the details in that file, the specificity, the corroborating documentation from multiple sources. Fabrication seemed unlikely. Even if that were true, Victor said carefully, the damage is done. Our family's alliance is no longer viable. Perhaps not through marriage. Chidi's smile sharpened. But through mutual interest, that's a different matter. Victor's eyes narrowed. Explain. Your daughter is involved with Lee Seo-jun. The Black Crown. Chidi let the title land. Do you know what that means? I know he's powerful. He's not just powerful. He's dangerous. Chidi stood, moving to the window. His organization controls half of Seoul's infrastructure. His influence extends to Singapore, Dubai, even preliminary interests in West Africa. Victor's expression didn't change. But his mind raced. He's a threat to everyone who opposes him, Chidi continued. And right now, he's positioning your daughter as an asset. A bridge to African markets he's been eyeing for years. You think he's using her? I think he's manipulating her. Chidi turned. The same way he manipulated you. That file you received? Designed to turn you against me. To isolate Daniela from her family. To make her completely dependent on him. Doubt crept in. Poisonous. Seductive. What do you propose? An alliance of a different kind. Chidi's eyes gleamed. My family has resources. Connections. Influence in circles that could challenge even the Black Crown. Combined with your network in Nigeria. He paused, letting the implication build. We could bring your daughter home. Remove her from his influence. Restore her to her family where she belongs. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Calculating. Always calculating. And what do you get in return? Chidi's smile turned cold. What I've always wanted. What's owed to me? Daniela. The word hung unspoken. Victor should have refused. Should have remembered the file. The evidence. His daughter's accusations. But Victor Michael had spent his entire life seeing his children as assets. Extensions of his will. Tools for empire building. Old habits die hard. What do you need from me? So, that same evening, Jun-ho's report lay open on Seo-jun's desk. The photographs were damning. Chidi Adeyemi entering the Michael compound. Victor Michael greeting him personally. A 2-hour meeting with no public record. An alliance forming. What do we know about his intentions? Jun-ho stood rigid near the door. His expression carried rare concern. Our sources suggest Adeyemi is proposing joint action. Against you. Against your interests in West Africa. Seo-jun's fingers traced the photograph's edge. Chidi's smile. Victor's handshake. Enemies combining. And Daniela? Jun-ho hesitated. She's the prize. Both men want her returned to Lagos. For different reasons, perhaps, but the outcome would be the same. Cage her. Control her. Own her. Over my dead body. Increase security on all properties. Double her protection detail. Seo-jun's voice was ice. And find out exactly what they are planning. Sir. Jun-ho's voice carried unusual weight. There's something else. Speak. Your council is growing, concerned. About your focus on Miss Michael. About resources being redirected to her protection instead of business interests. Seo-jun's gaze sharpened. The council. 7 men who advised on organizational matters. Who held influence among the various factions of his empire. Who had been loyal to his father before him. Who could become problems if not managed carefully. Which council members? Kim Tae-young. Park Min-ho. Jun-ho paused. And your uncle? Of course. Lee Jae-won had always coveted the crown. My uncle's concerns are noted. Sir. I said they are noted. The temperature in the room dropped. Jun-ho bowed his head. Yes, sir. Alone again. Seo-jun stared at the photographs. Enemies multiplying. Allies questioning. And the woman he loved caught in the center. He should distance himself. Logic demanded it. Survival required it. Every lesson his father had taught him screamed to cut emotional ties before they became weapons. But he couldn't. Wouldn't. She told him to choose. He'd chosen her. And he would burn the world before he let anyone take her away. 2 days later. Daniela knew something was wrong the moment Seo-jun entered the penthouse. His expression was controlled. Too controlled. The kind of stillness that preceded storms. What happened? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crossed to the window, staring at Seoul's evening lights as if searching for words. Your father met with Adeyemi. Ice in her veins. I know. You told me. I didn't tell you what they discussed. She moved closer. Slowly. Like approaching a wounded predator. Then tell me now. Seo-jun turned. His eyes held something she'd never seen before. Fear. The Black Crown, afraid. They want to take you back. Both of them. Adeyemi proposed an alliance, using your father's resources and his family's connections to challenge my influence. To force you to return. They can't force me. They can try. His voice hardened. Your father has influence with Nigerian authorities. Adeyemi has resources to make people disappear. Together, they could create enough pressure to make your life here impossible. Daniela's hands clenched. Not again. She would not be controlled again. Then we fight back. It's not that simple. Why not? Seo-jun's jaw tightened. Because fighting back means exposing you. Publicly. The media attention alone could destroy any chance of a normal life. I don't want a normal life. She stepped closer. I want my life. The one I'm building. Here. With you. Something cracked in his expression. Hope. Fear. Love. There's another option. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. What option? I could let you go. The words landed like blows. What? If you leave Seoul voluntarily, return to Lagos on your own terms, they lose their leverage. You could negotiate directly with your father. Build bridges on your terms instead of theirs. And you? His silence answered. You would just let me go. Her voice shook. After everything. After all of this. If it kept you safe. No. The word echoed through the penthouse. Fierce. Absolute. Uncompromising. I am not a piece on a chessboard. She stepped into his space. I am not a problem to be solved or a negotiation to be managed. I am a person. And I have chosen. Her hands found his chest. I chose you. Not because you're powerful. Not because you can protect me. But because you see me. Because you knelt beside me when you could have commanded. Because you asked if I was angry instead of assuming you were right. Her voice broke. Don't you dare try to sacrifice yourself for my sake. Not when I need you. Not when I love you. The word hung between them. First time spoken. Irrevocable. Seo-jun's hands rose to cup her face. Trembling. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Lee Seo-jun. The Black Crown. The man who cooks breakfast and speaks of his mother and kneels before a woman he could command. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I love all of you. And I will not let you push me away. He kissed her. Desperate. Consuming. Surrendering. When they parted, his forehead pressed against hers. I love you too. The words emerged rough. Broken. First time spoken by him as well. I didn't think I was capable of this. Of love. Of vulnerability. My father taught me that love was weakness, that it would be exploited, destroyed, used against me. His arms wrapped around her. Protective. Possessive. Tender. But you've changed me. Without trying. Without demanding. You simply existed, and everything I thought I knew fell apart. He pulled back to look at her. Raw. Exposed. His. I will not let you go. I will not sacrifice what we have for what might keep you safe. We face this together. Together. A covenant renewed. Stronger than before. Then let's fight. The next morning, Seo-jun called his council together. 7 men gathered in the Hanyul Tower boardroom, men who controlled billions in assets, commanded thousands of loyal soldiers, and had helped his father build the empire that now rested on Seo-jun's shoulders. Men who needed to be managed. He entered alone. No Jun-ho. No guards. A statement of absolute confidence. Gentlemen. He took his seat at the head of the table. Silence fell. The kind of silence that acknowledged power. I've been informed that some of you have concerns about my recent decisions. No one moved. No one breathed. I will address those concerns now. He leaned forward. My involvement with Daniela Michael is not a distraction. It is not a weakness. It is a strategic decision that will open doors to African markets we've been targeting for years. Half-truth. The best lies always were. The Michael family controls significant influence in West African business circles. My relationship with their daughter provides access we could not achieve through conventional means. Kim Tae-young, elderly, calculating, one of his father's original lieutenants, spoke first. And if the family opposes this relationship? If they become enemies instead of allies? Then we destroy them. The words landed without emotion. Pure calculation. The Black Crown speaking. Victor Michael is a businessman, not a warrior. His threats are financial, legal, reputational. We have answers for all of those. Park Min-ho stirred. And the Adeyemi alliance. A desperate move by a desperate man. Seo-jun's voice hardened. Chidi Adeyemi humiliated himself in my city. His family's reputation suffered. This alliance is an attempt to recover lost face, nothing more. But the resources they could combine are insignificant compared to ours. Seo-jun stood. Deliberate. Commanding. Let me be clear. I have ruled this organization for 12 years. I have tripled our holdings. I have eliminated every enemy who challenged us. I have earned the crown through blood, strategy, and sacrifice. He met each man's eyes in turn. If anyone at this table questions my judgment, speak now. Challenge me directly. I welcome the clarity. Silence. Absolute. Terrified. His uncle, Lee Jae-won, sat at the far end. His expression revealed nothing. But his eyes calculated. Always calculating. No challenges. Seo-jun returned to his seat. Good. Then we proceed as planned. I want full surveillance on Adeyemi Holdings. Pressure their partners. Disrupt their supply chains. Make them regret crossing us. And the woman? His uncle's voice was smooth. Careful. Seo-jun's gaze sharpened. Miss Michael is under my protection. Permanently. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. Anyone who harms her dies. No ambiguity. No room for interpretation. Is that understood? Yes, sir. 7 voices. One answer. But his uncle's eyes held something else. Something patient. Something waiting. 1 week later. Everything unraveled. It began with a phone call. Daniela's personal phone, the one from Nigeria, kept charged but rarely used, buzzed with a Lagos number. Her mother. Hello. Daniela. Her mother's voice was strained. Urgent. You need to come home. Mama, we've discussed. Your father had a heart attack. The world stopped. What? This morning. He collapsed during a meeting. He's in surgery now. Daniela gripped the phone. She hated him. She feared him. But he was her father. How serious? They don't know yet. Her mother's voice cracked. Please, Daniela. Whatever happened between you, he's asking for you. He might be dying. Manipulation? Or truth? She couldn't tell. I need to think. There's no time. Her mother's composure shattered. I've lost you for 3 years. I cannot lose you both. Please. Please come home. The call ended. Daniela stood frozen. Trapped between old wounds and new fears. That evening. She told Seo-jun everything. His response was immediate. It's a trap. Maybe. She paced the penthouse. But what if it's not? What if he's actually dying and I don't go? Then you protect yourself from manipulation. And live with the guilt forever. He fell silent. Understanding without agreeing. If I go. She turned to face him. I go on my terms. With protection. With a plan. You're not going alone. Seo-jun. I'm not debating this. His voice hardened. If you go to Lagos, I go with you. That's exactly what they want. To get you out of your territory. Away from your power base. I don't care. I care. She crossed to him. You've built an empire here. You have enemies watching every move. Your council is already questioning your judgment because of me. Let them question. And if they do more than question. His jaw tightened. She'd struck a nerve. Your uncle has been waiting for an opportunity. You told me yourself. Don't give him one. I'm not letting you walk into danger without me. Then send Jun-ho. Send a team. But don't abandon your throne for my family's chaos. Logic battling emotion. Strategy fighting love. Daniela. I love you. Her hands found his face. And I will not be the reason you lose everything you've built. Go to Lagos with a target on your back, or stay here and trust me to handle this. Trust you. Yes. The hardest thing she could ask. For a man who trusted no one. Seo-jun closed his eyes. When he opened them, resignation mingled with determination. Jun-ho and a full team. Non-negotiable. Agreed. Daily contact. If I don't hear from you for 6 hours, I'm on the next flight. Agreed. And you come back to me. His voice broke on the last word. I promise. She kissed him. Sealing the vow. She left for Lagos the next morning. And walked directly into the trap she'd feared. Lagos. The Michael compound. Her father was not dying. Daniela realized the truth the moment she entered the compound and found Victor Michael standing in the foyer, weakened, perhaps, but very much alive. His heart attack had been real. The severity had been exaggerated. Daughter. His voice carried the old authority. The old expectation. As if 3 years hadn't passed. Father. Her voice was ice. You look remarkably well for a dying man. I never said I was dying. Mother implied. Your mother was, encouraged to emphasize the urgency. He gestured toward the sitting room. We have much to discuss. Jun-ho stood behind her, along with 3 other members of her protection detail. Not alone. Never alone again. Whatever you have to say, you can say here. In front of strangers? In front of my people. Victor's expression flickered. Annoyance. Calculation. Adjustment. Very well. He clasped his hands behind his back. I want you to come home. Permanently. End this arrangement with the Korean. Resume your place in this family. No. You haven't heard my offer. I don't need to. She stepped closer. I left for a reason. That reason hasn't changed. The Adeyemi situation is not the only reason I left. Her voice hardened. You didn't believe me, father. When I told you what Chidi did, what he tried to do, you called it a misunderstanding. I was wrong. The admission startled her. He never admitted wrong. I received evidence about his history, about other women. Victor's jaw tightened. I should have believed you. Yes, you should have. I'm trying to make amends. By tricking me into coming here? By exaggerating a medical crisis to manipulate my emotions. She laughed bitterly. This isn't amends. This is control. Dressed up differently. Daniela. I'm not staying. I came because I thought you were dying. You're clearly not. So I'll leave tomorrow. That won't be possible. Ice flooded her veins. Excuse me? Victor's expression shifted. The conciliatory mask fell away, revealing the steel beneath. Your protection detail will be asked to leave Nigerian soil. Diplomatic complications. Immigration issues. I have influence with the appropriate authorities. You can't. I can. His voice hardened. I've spent 3 years watching my daughter waste herself on independence. Throwing away her family, her position, her future for pride. He stepped closer. That ends now. Junho moved forward, hand reaching for his weapon. Miss Michael, we should leave immediately. Yes. She didn't take her eyes off her father. We should. The airports are already notified. Victor's smile was cold. No private flights to Seoul for the next 48 hours. Technical difficulties. Unfortunate timing. Trapped. Just like before. You can't keep me here forever. I don't need forever. I need long enough. He turned away. Your room is prepared. We'll speak tomorrow when you've had time to consider your situation. He walked away, dismissing her, as if she was still a child. This isn't over, she called after him. It's already over. He didn't look back. Welcome home, daughter. Seoul. 12 hours later. Lee Seo-jun stood in his penthouse, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean the airports are closed? Junho's voice crackled through the connection. Officially, technical difficulties. Unofficially, her father has connections at the highest levels of Nigerian Aviation Authority. Get her out through alternative means. We're exploring options. But the compound is heavily guarded. Her father has essentially placed her under house arrest. Rage. Cold. Absolute. Controlled. I'm coming. Sir, that's exactly what they want. I don't care what they want. His voice dropped to something deadly. She is mine. And I will burn that entire country to the ground before I let them cage her. The council can do what they wish. He moved toward the door. If they are not with me when I return, they'll answer for it. No more calculation. No more strategy. Just action. Lagos. 24 hours later. Daniela sat in her childhood room, staring at walls that felt like prison bars. Her phone had been taken. Her protection detail had been removed from the compound, still in Lagos, but separated from her by gates and guards and her father's will. Alone. Again. A knock at her door. Daniela. Her mother's voice. May I come in? Does it matter if I say no? The door opened anyway. Her mother entered, older than Daniela remembered, wearier, carrying burdens that showed in every line of her face. I'm sorry. The words were quiet. Genuine. For the phone call? For lying about father's condition? For all of it. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. For not standing with you 3 years ago. For choosing peace over truth. For being a coward. Daniela's anger flickered. Her mother had always been caught between her husband's will and her children's well-being. Why are you telling me this now? Because he's gone too far. Her mother's voice strengthened. Keeping you prisoner. Manipulating your emotions. Treating you like property instead of family. He's always treated me like property. I know. Tears slipped down her mother's cheeks. And I let him. Because I was afraid. Because fighting him seemed impossible. She reached for Daniela's hand. But I'm not afraid anymore. Not of him. Not of losing him. She squeezed gently. I'm only afraid of losing you. Forever this time. Mama. There's a way out. Her mother glanced toward the door. The staff entrance. Guard shift changes at midnight. I can create a distraction. Hope sparked. Dangerous. Fragile. Why would you do this? Then don't. Her mother smiled through tears. Build your life in Seoul. Love the man who makes you happy. And maybe, someday, when your father isn't standing between us. She couldn't finish. But the promise hung unspoken. Someday. Hope for reconciliation. Midnight. 11:47 p.m. Daniela crept through darkened hallways, guided by childhood memory and her mother's whispered instructions. The staff entrance loomed ahead. Freedom. So close. Going somewhere? Chidi. He emerged from shadows, blocking her path. His smile was cold. Triumphant. Your father told me you might try this. Asked me to discourage you. Get out of my way. Or what? He stepped closer. Your protection is gone. Your Korean lover is thousands of miles away. You're alone, Danny. Just like old times. Fear clawed at her throat. Old patterns. Old terrors. But she wasn't the same woman who'd fled Lagos 3 years ago. I said move. Make me. He lunged. She was ready. 3 years of self-defense training. Of promising herself never again. Of transforming fear into preparation. She ducked his grab, drove her elbow into his solar plexus, and swept his legs as he doubled over. He hit the ground hard. Stay down. But Chidi was already rising, rage twisting his features. You bitch. A shadow moved behind him. Lee Seo-jun stepped into the light. His face was carved from stone. His eyes promised death. Touch her again. His voice was soft. Everyone knew what soft meant. And I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your short life regretting it. Chidi froze. Recognition. Terror. Calculation. This is Nigeria. You have no power here. I have power everywhere. Seo-jun moved past Chidi without looking at him, reaching for Daniela with hands that trembled. Are you hurt? I'm fine. She gripped his arms. How are you here? I told you. His forehead pressed against hers. I'll always come for you. Behind them, Jun-ho appeared with a full tactical team. Sir, we need to move. The extraction point is 2 kilometers out. Go. Seo-jun's arm wrapped around Daniela. We're right behind you. They moved through the compound like ghosts, past neutralized guards, through gates that had been disabled, toward vehicles waiting in the darkness. Freedom. Finally. Seoul. 3 days later. The penthouse felt different now. Safer. More like home. Daniela stood at the window, watching Seoul's lights glitter in the evening darkness. Behind her, Seo-jun moved quietly, always close now, always touching her as if to confirm she was real. Your father's influence has been neutralized. His voice broke the comfortable silence. Neutralized how? The evidence I sent earlier was only the beginning. There was more. Enough to ensure his business partners began distancing themselves. Enough to make his political connections reconsider their associations. She turned. He destroyed her father's empire. For her. Seo-jun. He will never hurt you again. His voice was absolute. None of them will. And Chidi? The Adeyemi family has been informed that any further contact with you will be treated as a declaration of war. His eyes hardened. They understood. War. He would have gone to war. Your counsel. His expression flickered. Something there. My uncle attempted to challenge my leadership while I was in Lagos. Her blood chilled. What happened? He lost. 3 words. Carrying worlds of violence she didn't want to imagine. Is he? In exile. Permanently. Seo-jun moved closer. I don't kill family. But I don't forgive betrayal either. And the others? The ones who questioned you. Have been reminded of why they shouldn't. The Black Crown. Ruthless. Absolute. Terrifying. And hers. I love you. The words emerged without thought. True. Simple. Unshakable. His expression softened. The crown fell away, leaving only the man. I love you too. He pulled her close. More than power. More than this empire. More than my own survival. Don't say that. It's true. His hands cupped her face. You changed everything. Who I am. What I want. What I'm willing to sacrifice. He kissed her forehead. You are my home, Daniela Michael. My peace. My reason. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Joy. Relief. Love. Then come home to me, she whispered. Every night. For the rest of our lives. Always. 6 months later. The wedding was small. Intentionally. A private garden in Jeju Island. 30 guests maximum. Security so tight even the birds were screened. Daniela wore white, not traditional Korean, not traditional Nigerian, but something uniquely hers. A dress designed to bridge 2 cultures without belonging entirely to either. New traditions. New beginnings. Her mother had come. Alone. The divorce from Victor Michael was still processing, but she'd already begun building her own life, the first independent life she'd ever known. Tobias stood among the guests as well. Not forgiven entirely. But present. Family was complicated. Seo-jun waited at the altar, wearing a suit that cost more than most houses but looking at her like she was the only valuable thing in the world. Jun-ho stood beside him as best man. His expression, for once, held something resembling a smile. Ready? Her mother squeezed her hand. Ready? She walked toward her future. Toward love. Toward danger. Toward adventure. Toward home. The vows were traditional. The kiss was not. Seo-jun kissed her like they were alone, like the 30 witnesses didn't exist, like he was claiming her soul along with her hand. When they parted, he whispered. Mine. Yours. 2 words. Everything. 1 year later. The rain fell over Myeongdong just like that first night. Daniela stood at the window of their penthouse, watching Seoul's lights blur into watercolor dreams. In her arms, a daughter slept, 3 months old, perfect, carrying her father's sharp features and her mother's brown skin. Hana. Meaning one in Korean. Meaning flower in Japanese. Meaning everything to them both. Arms wrapped around her from behind. She's beautiful. Seo-jun's voice was soft. Reverent. She has your jaw. And your spirit. He kissed her temple. She'll be unstoppable. She'll be loved. Daniela leaned back against him. That's what matters. Silence. Comfortable. Complete. Do you ever think about it? She watched the rain fall. That night in the alley? What would have happened if I'd walked past like everyone else? I would have died. Maybe. Not maybe. His arms tightened. You saved me, Daniela. Not just my body, my soul. Everything I've become since that night exists because you chose compassion over survival. I was hungry. You were kind. The distinction meant everything. I gave you my last meal, she murmured. And you gave me the world. I would give you more. He turned her to face him, careful not to wake their sleeping daughter. I would give you everything. Every kingdom. Every crown. Every breath I have left. I don't need kingdoms. She smiled. I just need you. And her. And this. Home. Family. Love that had grown from compassion. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside, warmth flourished. And in Myeongdong, in an alley where a Nigerian woman once knelt beside a bleeding Korean stranger, a small memorial had been installed. A bench. A plaque. Words in Korean and English. Compassion changes everything. Sometimes, it saves the world. Daniela didn't know about the memorial. Not yet. But someday, Seo-jun would take her there. Would show her what her kindness had built. Would remind her that one act of grace had rippled outward into an empire of love. For now, they held their daughter. Watched the rain. And built their forever, one moment at a time. Thank you for watching this Afro-Korean romance journey. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment telling us your favorite moment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful love story. Until next time, may compassion guide your path, and may love find you when you least expect it.